Let's talk about a shift from artificiality towards reality. How this transformation happens. You may call it a spiritual transformation or spiritual evolution of an individual. But this transformation or change, when it starts, how does it move in that direction of reality or towards the realization of your true self and living a life which is closer and closer to the nature and to the reality of humanity. So as you move, what is the major hindrances, major obstacles which one encounters on this path, on this journey? And a lot of them are subconscious, and a lot of them are kind of unknown. And as we make an attempt, or we make an attempt to even understand the reality, the obstacles come in form of fears. And due to those fears and uncertainties about what will happen when we do this or become like this, how will the society, what will the society think of us? What will people say? Will I be acknowledged? What will happen to my reputation? What will happen to my status? This will change, that will change. These kind of fears start creeping in, and they become obstacle to your path to attaining the reality or realizing your true self and realizing that this world is an illusion. This world is transient, as all physical things are transient and they are not the true source of happiness. To realize the goal of life is be in a state of happiness, internal happiness, not a happiness which is momentarily attained through these transient physical world objects or people. So when we start getting aware about the fakeness of the society, the fakeness of this world, and the adharma which is being permeating in this world, and then we start realizing that we have drifted away from the true human nature, the good qualities of human on which or the dharma on which the humanity should be based and living, existing and performing and living in a harmony. So then we start questioning, and when we start the right questioning, then we start getting the answers. So this contemplation and introspection about what's happening in your life and what we are doing is right and what we have been taught is right, what are the norms and how they got distorted, and what people are doing, are they really following the dharma? So when we start doing introspection and contemplation, we start realizing that we need to change. So these are the bases for which on which a person decides to start drift away from the artificial world and starts a journey towards self-realization. So once this is understood, then we see what are the obstacles on the path, which are in form of fears and uncertainties, which can cause anxiety, because when you start changing, you start letting go, you start accepting the change, you start understanding that the change is giving you benefits in that way of peace of mind. Because when you start moving away from the reality, from this artificial world, from this sansar, from this world which is now based on adharma, negative human qualities, then you start moving towards the reality. So when this path begins, you encounter these challenges in terms of fear and lack of confidence and anxiety and uncertainties and not really understanding how the creation works and how the whole nature supports, mutually supports and coexist, and how are we part of that, is to realize, because what the world we have created is so artificial that we feel this is the reality. So the reality, the artificiality appears as a reality, and that's why we call it an illusion. We have actually broken the nature, we have drifted away from the nature, and we are trapped in that, and so much so that the society has actually created a perception that this is the reality. And when we understand the reality, we start understanding the actual reality, the nature and how it operates, we slowly starts moving towards that. So eh, obviously there'll be fears and anxiety initially because you are not used to that. You are not now part of nature, you are part of the artificiality. So these fears come. Now, how those fears are overcome, that's the point. How those anxieties are controlled, how that uncertainties are removed, and how you start recognizing the reality. So slowly, when you start understanding the reality, and you start at the same time understanding the futility of the artificial world, the confidence into the reality starts coming in. And it doesn't come just by sitting and just by introspecting, but you also got to practice that sadhana. The practice is that you slowly start adopting that into your life, the reality. And then you slowly start adopting the reality, you automatically start letting go the artificiality. So how do you do this? How do you live? And so there's a time needed. There is a time, and as you start realizing and living that reality, a slight delta change, you get confidence that okay, what I thought and the fear which I had actually is gone, because what the reality what I have adopted in my life has actually made a positive difference in my life, and this removed all those anxiousness, those feeling of negative emotions which were being caused by the artificial world. And by adopting the reality, getting closer to the reality, to the nature, to the true humanity, I am now in a better state of mind. And as you get there, this is actually liberation. You are slowly breaking those chains of bondages, slavery to this artificial world, which was a norm. Through a norm, you were chained in that, you were trapped into that. As you start unshackling those chains, you will realize that you are becoming a person which is free. We were born free. Naturally, the soul was free. It's a mind which start getting trapped into these norms because you were thrown into an environment and you adopted that, and you were forced to adopt that. And slowly, when you actually became a finished product ready to be in the market, in the society, as a responsible person, you are now conditioned with something else. So as you start unshackling those chains, you feel the great transformation. The negative triggers are gone. The negative emotion starts disappearing. The source of negative triggers start disappearing, because now you are connected to the source which is of true. There's a true source which gives you internal happiness and which is consistent. So it's a happiness which is not, you're not seeking happiness through these transient external material objects. So you now connected to the source which is constant, which is infinite, which is inside you only. It's not through the external world. So inside means it is through the nature. So as you become part of the nature, as you become part of the reality, as you become part of the true humanity, the human values, you start unchaining yourself, freeing yourself from those artificial norms of the society through which you are conditioned. and which led to a turbulent mind, a constant source of worries, which you were all trapped in. So these fears will start disappearing slowly, slowly, slowly as you start experimenting that. You have to try it out. When you try it out, you feel things are getting better, and my life is, I'm still eating food, I'm still sleeping, I have, I need some clothes to wear probably. So imagine a yogi, when a yogi goes to the mountain, doesn't need many clothes. He lives with the so he becomes minimalistic. So when you become minimalistic, when you experiment being minimalism, you realize you were chasing something futile. You accumulated, you had a baggage, you created baggages. So even accumulation was also a slavery. You were slave to that physical assets which you created. Now you're free. What you need, you realize your basic needs. You realize what all you created in this, or you wanted in this artificial world, was out of lust, greed, ego, status, artificial status. So when you start realizing that, you start freeing yourself from the clutches of those modern artificial social norms. So the point is that you need to experiment, to explore and experiment the real nature in your life, so that those fears are overcome. As you move, as you start unshackling those chains from those traps, you get closer to more and more to the reality. You become simple. Your life becomes simpler from the complexities of the artificial world. Your life becomes simpler as you go towards the true nature of your life, your human nature, and you start living that. You realize you don't need anything much. You eat. You need that only to eat. You need some shelter, and there's nothing else. You need to conserve your energy. You don't have to keep running around. You don't have to dissipate your energy. You have to conserve your energy. Look at animals. They sleep, eat. And they are completely in a closed loop cycle with the nature. They just sleep and eat. They don't have a salary. They don't go to job. They don't not create anything artificial. They are completely connected to the nature. It's only the human species which is connected to the artificiality. So see how you look around, how the whole world runs. We are not the world. Humans are not the world. There are lakhs of species which are just flourishing. Though we have destroyed a lot of them, as we are humans are on a constant destruction spree. What we call development is a myth. It's a constant destruction of the nature. And we are already now seeing the results to different things like global warming and the artificially created environment, which is causing all the mental stress. So the fears will go away. Now I'll give you a very good example from my own life. As I am moving towards simplicity and closer to the nature, I moved from big cities to smaller cities, and I spent some time in the villages, and I realized how simple the life is. So just a small thing to ponder about is simplicity better or complexity better? Where is the life simple? Is it in the city, or is it in a village, or is it in a forest? And where is the yogi living? So is the yogi happier, or somebody in the city happier? What is the yogi needing? So why don't we emulate a yogi? Why don't we live a life which is close to the nature? Do we ever even think that who's happier? So if we start questioning this, if we start doing that kind of comparison, that who's actually really happy, rather than thinking who's having more money. Life is not about money, it's about happiness. So do you really think who's happy? And where is that person happy? In New York, in London, in Paris, in Mumbai, Delhi, or maybe in some remote place in the mountain. Where do you go when you want de-stress. You go to those places. You meet those saints. You go to a church, you go to a temple, you go to a mosque, you go to meet a saint or a yogi when you are in extreme trouble. In India, it is very standard that people go to a temple when they are stressed, when they are in trouble, they remember God, or then they search for some saint or yogi. Though the West is now devoid of that, unfortunately, so they have these life coaches and that coach and this coach and motivational speaker, and it's filled with crap. Those people just have no idea what they're talking, and the Western world is just flocking to them because they have no other source. So though there are many who is finding a source, and even in India the sources are now dwindling, but still there is a source. So what is needed is self-inquiry and self-analysis to really move towards to the reality or the humanity, which will actually make you happy and which will free you from these bondages of the modern artificial society. And as you experiment, so I was about to give my example, like when I moved to a village, I saw the simplicity of the life, and I saw the life. And you naturally tend to leave all those gadgets, the mobile phone and the data, internet, digital world. It just doesn't attract you, and you are pulled away by the nature. The nature pulls you, and there's a automatic relaxation which happens. And you look at those people, what simple life they're living, and compare with the people in the city. They're just running around for I don't know what. They're constantly running around. They have no time. They are digitally intoxicated. They are intoxicated with materialism, shopping, dining, this and that, spending. Some people spend so much money on eating. That's the budget of a big family in a farm, in a village. And the budget of a family in a village is equivalent to one dinner in Mumbai or London. So what? Just look what complexity we have created. So the fear and uncertainties will go away. We'll start understanding the nature, start trusting the nature. And when we trust the nature, we trust the reality, we start moving towards it, and all those fears will start going away. So it takes time for this conditioning. It takes a lot of introspection and contemplation. It needs experimentation and exploration, because as you introspect and observe and introspect and contemplate, you need to bring it in your life, and for that you need to do some exploration and experimentation. For that you need some courage. And once you do that, you gradually move on that path, and all the fears will slowly move away. And then your mind will expand. Your consciousness will rise. You'll go to higher consciousness. You'll go above time and space. You will actually spiritually evolve. You will experience things beyond space and time. It's basically nothing but expansion of mind, which gives you clarity and view to the reality. And not just a view to the reality, you start living that reality. And then you go, then you just go. This path becomes almost irreversible, and you just keep going in that direction, and you become more and more free. And you have to feel that freedom. It cannot be explained. It's very difficult to understand how can you be free when you start releasing yourself from this material world. It's very difficult to understand, because actually you're free when you have nothing. But what you're doing is you're wanting, just don't know. You just don't know what you want, but you're just constantly wanting. You are in a state of constant desire and expectation. But when you're free, you just don't want anything. All your desires are dead. What you need comes to you through nature, but you're not willing to accept that. And this can only be understood and lived by exploring and experimenting it. And before that comes introspection and contemplation. And when you reach that state finally, and when you are able to live that, you reach a state of mental freedom. Your mind is freed, or you are freed from the clutches of the mind, because all this artificial world is a creation of the mind. All the norms are all imposed on the mind. So the mind is controlling you through the norms, through the conditioning. Once you free, the mind is free. You get all the clarity. You have all the answers about life. And then your life is simplified, and then you are living the way you should have lived. It's very difficult to believe because we are living in a very, very, very extremely artificial, materialistic world. It's very difficult to free as believe that the whole world which is living like this, how can I go away and live differently? So you have to experiment it, and then only you can get over those fears and uncertainties and anxieties and the trust in nature. We don't trust anyone, and we don't even trust the nature, and that's why we are anxious. We don't have trust. Then humanity is lost. So the humans are all fighting for money. So obviously the humanity is already gone, but you need to create your own. You have to create your own zone.